Alright, so it's time for one of the more exciting episodes in each season of a franchise, and that is the trade deadline episode. A couple days ago, I did the episode where I explained the whole situation with the AI trades, and I had the straw poll in there. You guys voted on if you wanted to keep CPU trades on or off, and the overwhelming vast majority decided to keep trades on, so that's what we're gonna do. That's what my plan was anyways, and it's good to know that you guys also agree with what we should be doing here. So, AI trades are on, and let's just hop straight into what we did at the deadline. First trade we made, Greg Holland was sent to the Cincinnati Reds along with Adam Brett Walker in return for Stuart Fairchild. Holland is obviously having a good year. Reds need some bullpen help as they are in a very tight NL Central race. Adam Brett Walker is pretty much just a throw-in in the deal. Didn't really have a future in our system, but he is a decent player who could be used by the Reds if they decide to keep him around. Stuart Fairchild is a 68 overall, B potential, 24-year-old center fielder. He was not going to be used by them. He was on their 40-man roster. They already have Nick Senzel and Taylor Trammell in their center field in their organization. So Stuart Fairchild was just kind of the odd man out with them. We decided to take him off their hands, and now he is going to be immediately in the big leagues for us, splitting time in center field, but getting the majority of the ABs at center field, with Jacoby Jones also getting some time as well, and then Steven Duggar once he comes back up for September call-ups. The next trade we made was shipping off Brandon Beachy to the Chicago Cubs in return for left-handed pitcher Braylon Marquez and right-handed pitcher Corey Abbott. Beachy actually got us a pretty darn good return. He is having a very good year for us, stays healthy all year long, he's been pitching very well. The Cubs, once again, are in that very tight NL Central race, and they do have some holes in the rotation, so they wanted to go out and get a starter. We gave them one in Brandon Beachy. Braylon Marquez is the main piece in the deal. He's a 21-year-old left-handed pitcher. I'll not say much more about him because he will be getting his very own prospect profile probably within the next 1 or 2 episodes. And then Corey Abbott is a 66 overall, C potential, 24-year-old right-handed pitcher, throws a cutter. He could be a decent pitcher in the big leagues eventually. Right now he's like AAA depth for us, but we'll have to see how he develops over the next couple seasons. We also traded Carlos Gonzalez, as that was the plan with him all along from when we signed him up until now, so of course he was traded to the Atlanta Braves in return for Braxton Davidson. Cargo's trade value was much lower than I expected, so I wasn't able to get anything really that special for him, so we just did a 1-for-1. We give them a need, we get a prospect back in return, because they very much need a right fielder. Eric Thames is their everyday right fielder against both righties and lefties, and they are in a very tight NL East race, so Carlos Gonzalez should help them fill that need for the rest of the season, while Braxton Davidson is a 23-year-old, 63 overall C potential first baseman. He can also play some corner outfield. He could have seeing time for us at first base, considering he does have really good discipline and vision, good plate skills, and he is still only 23, so he can improve quite a bit. Right now he'll be in AA for us because in AAA we have Gilberto Fuentes playing first base, and then in AA we don't really have a first baseman set, so Braxton Davidson will be getting time there, but he will be next season's AAA first baseman, so he could end up being a guy who sneakily works his way up to be a key part of our future, but we'll have to see how things turn out. And then the last trade I made was Mark Melancon shipped off to the Oakland Athletics, the other team in the Bay Area, and in return, we got Mike Fiers, Sheldon Noose, and Sky Bolt. Melancon having a serviceable year, A's are once again having a very good season, and Melancon is making so much money this year that we needed a contract to make the trade work, and that's where Mike Fiers comes in the deal. He's been in AAA all year long. They don't even use him. He's literally just a guy they're paying, so now they're going to be paying Mark Melancon to be a pretty good part of their bullpen, and then we'll take on Fiers' contract because they're both only making for the rest of the season, and then their contracts are up. And Fiers was immediately DFA'd by us, and he was outrighted to AAA. We need minor league pitchers, so he's just going to be pitching in AAA for the rest of the season for us. I doubt he'll be called up for September call-ups because that would require adding him back to the 40-man roster. He'll just be in AAA, rotting away for the rest of the season. Sheldon Noose, however, is the main return of this deal. He is a 25-year-old, 68 overall C potential third baseman / shortstop with good plate skills. He's got a good bat, very strong arm. He is a guy who's an older prospect. His ceiling is not the highest, but he could end up being a pretty decent third baseman for us at the major league level. He obviously has no future at that position with Oakland, as Matt Chapman is their third baseman, and well, he's not going anywhere. And then the third guy we got in return was Sky Bolt. He's more of a throw-in. He's also an older prospect, not the youngest guy. And he is more of just minor league depth at the moment. But who knows what happens with his development. Maybe he'll put together a couple insane seasons and end up being like a pretty good 27, 28-year-old rookie at some point. And now I do want to mention two trades that did happen around the league since the AI trades are back on. So the Yankees made a pretty big trade. Clint Frazier has been traded along with a relief pitcher named Adonis Rosa to the Kansas City Royals in return for Alberto Mondesi. Clint Frazier basically swapping two young guys. I'm not really sure why the Royals want to give up Alberto Mondesi, but they are doing that, and then Clint Frazier obviously doesn't have anywhere to play with the Yankees as they have a jam-packed outfield, but then Alberto Mondesi you would think doesn't really have anywhere to play for them because they also have a jam-packed infield now since they did trade for Keston Hiura. So basically what they did was they swapped their outfield logjam for an even bigger infield logjam. But this also probably means that they do not want Didi to be their long-term shortstop because for whatever reason he's always really bad in the MLB The Show games. And then the other trade I wanted to mention was the St. Louis Cardinals traded closing pitcher Bill Cooley, outfielder Justin Williams, and third baseman Malcolm Nunez to the Blue Jays in return for Marcus Stroman. So the Cardinals out here making a splash, picking up Marcus Stroman. Once again, a very tight NL Central race. They watched a bunch of other teams make trades, mainly because we gave them players to help them. But they knew they could not just sit around and do nothing, so the Cardinals went out and traded for Marcus Stroman to help their rotation. And it's definitely going to be an interesting August and September for the top teams in the NL Central. Now, I shouldn't say that Melanson was the last trade that we made, because we technically made one more. Fernando Abad, you guys probably forgot he was even on our organization. Never really had any plans for him. He's like in his 30s. He's just a lefty, deep potential guy who can possibly come in and get lefties out occasionally. But he's pretty much always been in AAA for us. I never really looked at him as a guy if I wanted to call for a reliever. He was never a guy I was like, yeah, he's one of the first ones. And I quite simply just wanted him off my 40-man roster, so rather than just DFAing him, I wanted to see if we could get something for him. Turns out that when you have a D potential, you don't really have the greatest trade value, so Fernando Abad was pretty much just swapped for another useless prospect in Justin Twine with the Miami Marlins, and let's be honest, Miami Marlins, he's probably like their third best reliever at the moment. And you may also be asking yourself, why was Jeff Samardzija not traded? And that is because Samardzija is making $18 million, so it's difficult to just trade him for a mediocre prospect. He's not pitching the greatest, so his trade value is not high to begin with. And then also you have the fact that he's making $18 million for the rest of the season, so even though it is only 1 year left in that deal, you do pretty much have to go out and get a contract throw-in. I wanted to get rid of Samardzija because I wanted to open up a spot on the roster, not trade for someone who is going to probably end up being on the roster as well. So instead, Samardzija is just going to stick around for the rest of the season. If he pitches like shit over his next few starts, we'll just end up DFAing him and outrighting him to AAA for the rest of his contract. But if he pitches decently, he'll just stick around for the rest of the year, and in the offseason when his contract is up, he will be gone. He will also probably end up losing his starting rotation job once the September call-ups come around and we want to get some guys some looks in the rotation. So now let's take a look at the new look post-trade deadline Giants. Not as drastic of a change as last year when we pretty much gutted the entire team at the deadline. We only have a couple spots that opened up, mainly in the pitching side of things. Andrew Suarez, left-handed pitcher, was called up and he will take Brandon Beachy's spot in the rotation. Suarez was absolutely shoving in AAA, and the plan is to give him another shot in the big leagues and then decide in the offseason based on how the rest of Suarez's season goes goes. In the offseason, we will make a decision on if we want to trade him, if we want to keep him around, if we think he's a part of our plans, and we'll make the decision then after he puts up some numbers here for the rest of the season. And then in the bullpen, TJ Trejo, along with Sean Anderson, were both called up from AAA and will now be in the bullpen. Only one spot opened up in the lineup, as Carlos Gonzalez was the only position player who got traded. So now playing in right field against lefties and righties will be Leury Garcia, who is having a good year for us, and Stuart Fairchild is now going to be the center fielder. I want to give him plenty of ABs and see what we have in him as a player. And also, before we move into the actual games of this episode, I do want to mention that since Suarez pitched so recently before his call-up and was not ready to make Brandon Beachy's start in the rotation where his spot would have been, we instead decided to make Sean Anderson have his spot start, and he absolutely shoved against the Marlins. He pitched 9 innings, went 9 innings, complete game for Sean Anderson, struck out 12, only allowed 2 hits and 1 earned run, so a very, very good game for Sean Anderson. He went out there and he showed why he is a guy I want to have in my rotation for next season. But with that being said, let's hop straight into the games. Here in San Francisco, the Giants are playing host to the New York Mets as the Giants are sending out Corey Oswalt. This will be the second time this season the Giants will be facing this starter. This will be his 16th total start of the year. Andrew Suarez will making his first start of the 2020 campaign, recently called up from AAA where he was absolutely dominating. Take a look at the Giants and, of course, the New York Mets lineups. And we'll start things off top of the first. Suarez on the hill, 1 out, getting a ground out from Hechavarria. Ryan Schimpf over on the hot corner making the play, showing off his improved glove over the past couple seasons. And then Jeff McNeil would ground out the shortstop. The Gold Glover in Brandon Crawford makes that play. Then with 2 outs in the bottom of the first, Ryan Schimpf technically strikes out here, but he reaches on the drop third strike. So runner on first, 2 outs, brings up Tetsuto Yamada, who is going to loop one into center field for a base knock. Schimpf does not stop at second. He goes into third, slides to avoid the tag, and he's in there. Runners on the corners for Nelson Cruz, as Yamada would go down and swipe second base. So it's both runners in scoring position for the big bat of Cruz. Puts a jolt into one, but it's going to be right at Keon Broxton in center field. We're still scoreless. Top of the second starts off well for Suarez, strikes at Cespedes, then with 1 out brings up Wilson Ramos, who connects on a pitch, sends it into right center field, into the gap. That's triples alley, but Ramos is so monumentally slow that he only gets a double. So now he's on second with 1 out, brings up Asdrubal Cabrera, who is also going to go gapping, but this time into left center. Jones gets to it quickly, gets the ball in, but a run does come in as the Mets have a 1-0 lead. Pete Alonso would then shot back to Suarez, who makes the play, and then for the 3rd out, Keon Broxton would fly out to right field, as Garcia is there to put that one away easily. Bottom of the 3rd now, Garcia at the dish, hits a ball up the middle. That's going to find its way into the outfield. So he's on first base with 1 out, brings up Buster Posey, and Garcia's going to go and swipe second base, show off his fleet feet. He's in scoring position now, as then Posey hits a ball into right field. Garcia's going to get a little cocky here, run through third base, head home, and he's gunned at the plate by the Strong relay throw, and it's still a 1-0 Mets lead. Cespedes back at the plate. Ryan Schimpf makes a dive, knocks it down, but cannot field it cleanly. So Cespedes infield single, then brings up Ramos, who hits a chopper over to Schimpf. He does field this, turns it into an around the horn double play. Still 1-0, bottom of the 4th now, as Tetsuto Yamada is going to hit a ball into left field for a single. He's on first now with 1 out, as then he goes and swipes second. The Giants just running wild in this game as Yamada gets into scoring position. Brandon Crawford then hits a ball on the ground over to second baseman McNeil, makes the diving stop, but it's not going to be fielded cleanly, so it's infield single for Brandon Crawford. Then Stuart Fairchild grounds over to shortstop, throw over to second, pulls the second baseman off the bag. Fairchild beats it out, and the game's tied at 1. First and second now 1 out as Jacoby Jones pops up into right field, brings up the pitcher, and Andrew Suarez goes into right field as well, but this one's going to be a single. As everybody moves up 1 bag, they do not test the arm of Juan Lagares again. So then bases loaded, Garcia could not get it done as he grounds over to second for the 3rd out of the inning. Move on to the top of the 5th. Pete Alonso hits a hard ground ball. Tetsudo Yamada makes the diving stop, throws over to first for the second out, and then the third out, or for the first out that was, and then for the third out, Corey Oswalt goes down looking on a big breaking 12-6 curveball. Bottom of the fifth now, Ryan Schimpf is going to hit a ball into right field past the diving glove of the first baseman for a single. Then Yamada is going to bloop one into center. Schimpf is able to go first to third quite easily this time, so it's now runners on the corners again for Nelson Cruz. Yamada once again goes and swipes second base. Another stolen base for him on the day, and this time Cruz is going to poke one past Hechavarria at shortstop, and the Giants have themselves a 2-1 lead in this ball game. So first and second with one out brings up Brandon Crawford, but he's going to ground into an inning-ending 4-6-3 double play. Top of the sixth now, Adeiny Hechavarria finds a ball that gets in over the head of the second baseman for a single. Then with two outs, Cespedes comes to the plate, cranks a pitch into the left center field gap. That'll score Hechavarria all the way from first base as the Mets tie this game up with an RBI double off the bat of Cespedes. It's now a 2-2 game. The Giants then decide to intentionally walk Wilson Ramos, bring on Tyler Beede with two outs to face Asdrubal Cabrera, and he would get the job done as Asdrubal Cabrera pops up to center field. Jacoby Jones is camped under that. He puts it away. It's a 2-2 game heading to the top of the seventh now, where Carter Capps comes on to pitch against the pinch hitter Michael Conforto, who he could not find the strike zone against. So with two outs, a runner on first, and then Juan Lagares, of all people, connects on a pitch, sends it over the left field fence, a two-run shot for the Mets, and Juan Lagares makes this a 4-2 Mets lead. Carter Capps not happy with himself. Edwin Diaz then comes on in the bottom half of the frame. 4-2 Mets lead. Ryan Schimpf draws a walk to lead off the inning. Next batter up is Yamada. Pitch gets away from the catcher Ramos. Schimpf's able to move up to second. Yamada would then not be able to do much, though, as he grounds out the shortstop Hechavarria. Easy out for the very good-handed shortstop. Luis Avalon then comes on with two outs to face Crawford, who is the left-handed batter, but then he could not get him out. 4-pitch walk to Crawford. Tyler Thornburg then came on to face the right-handed Fairchild, who hits a ball up the middle off the leg of Thornburg, and then the third baseman can't field it cleanly either, so it's bases loaded for Robbie Grossman, who comes on to pinch hit for Jacoby Jones. He gets inside-outed, but he finds a way for it to land for a base knock. One run comes in. Here comes Crawford, slides in. It's a tie game at 4. So second and third with two outs brings up Franklin Barreto, who pinch hits for the pitcher spot, and he's going to grind at the shortstop, so no more runs come in. Top of the eighth, and TJ Trejo comes on to face Jeff McNeil to lead off the inning. Ball 4 to him as the stretch from Trejo is very odd-looking. It will be changed for the next appearance, as then he gives up a home run to Wilson Ramos. 2-run shot, 6-4. Mets jump out to a 2-0 lead again. And that would end TJ Trejo's day, as Trevor Gott then came out of the pen. And guess what? He's facing a guy with one out, and Asdrubal Cabrera is going to go deep as well. Another home run in the inning. The Mets now have a 7-4 lead. We move on to the bottom of the eighth now with a 7-4 ball game. Robert Gazelman comes on out of the pen for the Mets. With two outs, he would walk Ryan Schimpf, so he's going to take his base. After that, it brings up Tetsudo Yamada. Hits a ball down the left field line, just barely stays fair. Schimpf's going to go first to third. Yamada will move up to second. Schimpf barely gets in before the throw, so second and third with two outs. Nelson Cruz this time hits a ball that lands fair, and it's going to drive in 2 runs as both Schimpf and Yamada score, and it's now a 7-6 game. Moving on to the bottom of the ninth, Familia comes on looking for the save. Leading off the inning is Robbie Grossman. 2 at-bats, 2 hits on the day for him. So he's on first, brings up the pitcher Maranta, as there's no more hitters on the bench to pinch hit, so he'll lay down a sac bunt, move Grossman into scoring position. Garcia then comes to the plate, hits a lofted fly ball into left center field. Can of corn for Broxton out in left center. Then with 2 outs, Posey hits a hard ground ball over the short, and the sure-handed shortstop of Hechavarria easily handles that. The Mets squeak away with this win, 7-6 over the San Francisco Giants here at Oracle Park. Wilson Ramos gets player of the game honors. He was 2 for 3 on the day with a home run and a double, drove in 2 runs on the day, scored twice as well as Dribble Cabrera, also 2 for 4 with a home run and a double. Tetsudo Yamada had a great offensive day as well. He was 4 for 5 on the day with a double and 2 runs. Brandon Crawford 3 for 4. And Robbie Grossman, of course, 2 for 2 with his pinch hit, 2 RBI single, and then also the single to lead off the bottom half of the 9th. But they could not drive him in, as the final score, of course, is 7-6 over the Giants. Mets come away with the win. We've got an NL West matchup on tap as the Arizona Diamondbacks are in town to take on the Giants, who have been red hot as of late. They are 9-1 in their last 10, and making the start for the D-backs will be the left-hander in Robbie Ray. Taking him on will be D-Rod. Derek Rodriguez, this will be his 26th start of the year for San Francisco. Take a look at the Giants lineup. Buster Posey at first, Luke Maile behind the plate, Nelson Cruz in left today, and then of course the D-backs lineup as well. Start things off with the D-backs at the dish. Ketel Marte is going to hit one in left field. Cruz field tosses it into second base. So Marte on first to lead off the game. And then Joey Rickard would go down on a big curveball. So 1 down, Marte goes and swipes second base, gets himself into scoring position. And then David Peralta at the plate. He goes down on another curveball, but it gets away from Maile, so he has to toss over to first. Marte moves up to third. And then with Wilmer Flores at the plate, another curveball gets away from Maile. And Marte would come in to score, and D-backs have a 1-0 lead. Flores would then go down looking on a outside curveball that he could not pull the trigger on. Top of the second now, another strikeout. That's already 4 on the day for Rodriguez as Lamb goes down, and then for the third out of the inning, it was Caleb Joseph going down for another strikeout. Bottom half of the second now, Tetsudo Yamada, the doubles machine, hits a ball down the left field line. That'll be a 2-bagger for him, so he's on second, brings up Franklin Barreto, who's going to pop one up to shallow right center. It is put away for out number 2, and then out number 3 would be a Stuart Fairchild fly out to right field, as it's still a 1-0 game. Top of the third now, Nick Ahmed's going down for another strikeout for Derek Rodriguez's tally. But then after that, Robbie Ray, the pitcher, would hit a ball back up the middle for a base knock. So now with 2 outs, runner on first, Rickard would pop one up to left field. Nelson Cruz, under it, what looks like to be under it, but somehow just flat out misplays it, does not catch it. Robbie Ray is going to score on what should have been an inning-ending pop-up. So it's a 2-0 game now. Rodriguez would then strike out Peralta on the up-and-in cutter. And we move on to the top of the 5th, where another ball is going to be hit towards Nelson Cruz. This one's over his head, should have been caught as well, but it's going to be a single instead for Caleb Joseph. After that, it brings up Nick Ahmed, who's also going to single past the third and shortstop. As it's now first and second with nobody out, Robbie Ray would then try to bunt, but a ball gets away from Maile, yet again a curveball. So second and third now, nobody out. Ray would then ground out to first base. Posey makes the play. So still second and third, 1 out as they intentionally walk Ketel Marte. So it's bases loaded, sets up a double play possibility. Joey Rickard would then line out to Posey, makes the snag in the air, and also tags the runner Marte, who's diving back. Very nice play by the first baseman Posey, who then comes up in the bottom of the 6th and hits a ball into left center field. That is going gapping. A 2-bagger for Buster Posey to lead off the inning. Then with 1 out, Nelson Cruz comes to the plate, hits a ball into left field. That is going to be good enough to move Posey up to third, but not score the very slow Posey. So very slow runners on the corners as Yamada would then hit a ball to deep center field. It would be caught, and it would be enough to tag up for Posey, make it a 2-1 game as the Giants are on the board, but that would be all that would happen that inning. TJ Trejo now on for the top of the 8th. This appearance went much better as the slider with enormous break on that strikes out Marte. He would also have a 1-2-3 inning. Hirano then comes on for the save for the D-backs, and with 1 out, Franklin Barreto hits the ball into left field for a base knock, so he's on first, then tries to get into scoring position himself, but he's going to be gunned down by Caleb Joseph's throw, so it's 2 down now, nobody on. Fairchild would then not be able to pull the trigger trigger on the down and away fastball. He goes down looking, and the D-backs come away with the win 2-1 here as the Giants lose yet another one-run game here in San Francisco. Robbie Ray pitched a solid game and gets himself player of the game honors, 6 1/3 strong, 4 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Derek Rodriguez struck out 7 over 5. But 2 runs that were caused by Luke Maile not being able to block curveballs in the dirt and then Nelson Cruz not being able to catch a pop-up were the difference in this game. The lesson has been learned. Nelson Cruz will no longer play the outfield. And with that being said, that is going to wrap things up here for this edition of the San Francisco Giants franchise. I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I am saying, I would like to fast forward to Friday so I can listen to Igor already.